There are a lot of things that people are upset about in the anime community, and the Naruto community is no exception to that rule. But there's some things that people are more upset about than others. While some people might be upset about the fact that Sai's crop top wasn't nearly high enough up his belly, many more people are upset about more important storytelling aspects of Naruto, like the complete misuse of some characters. See, this is one of the biggest weaknesses of Naruto. We're introduced to these incredibly cool characters like Haku and Kimimaru and Itachi, characters whose potential for power seems nigh limitless. And yet, because of illness or circumstance, we never get to see the true potential of these characters. And while not being able to see the full power of all of these characters previously listed is egregious, I think we can all genuinely agree that they aren't even the worst example of this happening in Naruto. See, while obviously getting to see an EMS Itachi with a fully formed Susanoo would have been incredible, there is another significantly more powerful character whose powers we didn't even really get to see fully fleshed out. A character who played a much larger plot in the role than any of those three combined. Of course, the only person I could possibly be talking about is Madara. You see, Madara, for hundreds of episodes, was built up as the final baddie of Naruto. A child prodigy hailed to be stronger than any previous ninja. The only man on the face of the earth capable of going toe-to-toe with the god of shinobi. A man who went head-to-head against the entirety of the allied shinobi forces and nine-tailed beasts. A man of unrivaled strength. And just as that man rose to the height of his power, just as he began to ascend to what his true power could be, he was killed. And not in an incredible battle where we got to see all of his powers used at the height of their prowess. He was stabbed in the back by a side character who apparently had manipulated him from the shadows for 100 years. And just like that, a character built up over hundreds of episodes, hundreds of chapters, said to be quite literally the strongest ninja ever created, snatched from us, just like that. And whether or not you agree or disagree with Kishimoto's choice to kill off Madara in this way, it still leaves us with a myriad of questions, the most important of which being, how strong was that Madara? Well, it's impossible to answer precisely, but there's enough empirical data on Madara to answer as accurately as possible, which is why today we're answering the question, how strong was Madara and who could he have beat in a fight? But before we get into all that, guys, please, for me, like this video, subscribe to the page, and hit that noti bell. And if you like hearing me talk about anime, you're gonna love my other YouTube channel, The Weeb Commander, where instead of talking Naruto, I talk shows like One Piece, Bleach, Fire Force, basically anything but Naruto. There are a dozen different forms of Madara. You can talk about him in the Warring States period. You can talk about him in his first fight against Hashirama. You can talk about him in his last fight against Hashirama. Or you can talk about Ten Tails Madara. Well, I think it would be a very interesting video idea to talk about living Madara's strength. Today, we're going to be talking about Ten Tail Madara's strength. So Madara with a Rinne Sharingan in his forehead and 2 Rinnegan. But in order to talk about the strength of Ten Tails Madara, we do have to talk about living Madara's strength, because all of his strengths build up to that final total of his final form strength. So let's start this video off in the way that we tend to start these videos off, at the beginning. By the way, if you're worried about me, this is just a new tattoo. I didn't like burn my arm or anything. Madara's strength was always otherworldly. Being the reincarnation of Indra, Hagoromo's first son, Madara was always destined to be incredibly powerful. Combine this with the fact that he was born during the Warring States period, where he, as a very young child, had to enter the battlefield, and you have the perfect concoction for making arguably the strongest ninja of all time. You see, Madara was on the battlefield from the age of 5 years old, and as a child, Madara killed multiple adult Senju combatants before awakening his Sharingan. This means simply with his chakra, a little bit of ninjutsu and taijutsu prowess, Madara, as a 5-year-old, was stronger than adult Senju. And while obviously none of these adult Senju were Hashirama or Tobirama, they were still Senju. And I'll take a minute to remind you what the word Senju means. It means 1,000 tasks, since the Senju prided themselves in being the most well-rounded ninja on Earth, as capable of taijutsu as they were of ninjutsu, as they were of genjutsu. Not to mention, Senju had insanely high life forces and chakra pools. And Madara was killing these men before even awakening his Sharingan. And Madara being a menace wouldn't stop there. Madara and his brother Izuna would go on to be absolute powerhouses on the battlefield. And upon figuring out that they could awaken to even higher levels of strength by awakening their Mangekyo Sharingan, Madara and Izuna assassinated one of their closest friends to awaken that power. And upon awakening the power of the MS, Madara was on par with Hashirama, a perfect sage with a healing factor comparable to Mitonic regeneration, and the reincarnation of Ashura who had as much chakra as Naruto during the War Arc. However, Madara's true power came after the death of his brother Izuna. After Izuna was killed by Tobirama in combat, Madara took Izuna's eyes and awoke an EMS. And with the power of EMS, it took both Hashirama and Tobirama and the majority of the Uchiha revolting against Madara to end the Warring States period to take him out. And after Madara was finally defeated and Konoha was created, a couple of years later, Madara revolted once again. And once again, it took the combined power of Tobirama and Hashirama to kill him for real. Well, as for real as it gets with Madara. You see, while Madara was alive as a ninja for Konoha, his feats were still relatively insane. Madara went to the Hidden Stone by himself and defeated both Mu and Inoki in their primes, simply to show to them that Konoha would always be superior to their inferior village. And mind you, both Mu and Inoki are particle-style users. They possess a Kekkei Toda, one of the only few one-shot abilities in Naruto that doesn't kill the user as well. And this was long before the addition of numerous hacks that Madara got down the line. See, Madara, when he was killed by Hashirama, used Izanagi to rewrite his death. And since Madara took a piece of Hashirama's flesh during that battle and kept it in his mouth, he was able to graft that piece of Hashirama's flesh over his wound, which mixed the bloodlines of both Ashura and Indra and made Madara awaken to Rinnegan. He then, with the power of this Rinnegan, much later in his life and significantly out of his prime, was able to summon the Geto statue from the moon. Now, mind you, the moon was created using Chibuka Tensei from both Hagoromo and Hamura. And Chibuka Tensei is arguably the strongest sealing jutsu in the entirety of Naruto. Madara was able to break the Geto statue out of that ceiling. Madara was then able to essentially engineer the Geto statue to turn into a life support system, something nobody had done or thought of prior. A life support system he could tap himself into to make himself live decades beyond when he was supposed to die, which is one of the innumerable feats that speaks to his arguably top 3 intelligence in the entirety of the Naruto universe. And then after finding somebody to hold on to his Rinnegan for him in Nagato and somebody to continue his will in Obito, he unplugged himself, only to be reincarnated during the 4th Great Shinobi World War. And I think it's important to note the power of this version of Madara. See, this version of Madara was brought back with his Sharingan, but not his Rinnegan. He was also brought back at the peak of his power. However, to call this version of Madara the peak of his power is kind of an oversimplification. See, not only was Madara brought back at the peak of his physical power using Edo Tensei, he also had Hashirama's cell grafted onto it. And since Kabuto technically brought Madara back in the peak of his lifetime, Madara was also revived with his Rinnegan. Except Madara only awoke the Rinnegan significantly later in his life. So to call this the peak of Madara's power is a stretch, because Madara in this form is substantially stronger than he ever was in his lifetime. Because not only did he have the physical prowess of his peak, he also had the dojutsu prowess of his end life. Madara also has an ability that we've only ever seen Madara have. See, Madara was reincarnated with his EMS. However, Madara was able to turn his EMS into a Rinnegan, which is something we've never seen in anyone else. This is most likely due to the fact that these Rinnegan were then transplanted into Nagato, who never had a Sharingan, and Sasuke really had no need because he had a 6-Tomei Rinnegan. But still, the ability to switch from Rinnegan to Sharingan is incredibly powerful. 1, you can control how much chakra you're using, and 2, it confers the fact that any of the Sharingan abilities Madara had before awakening the Rinnegan are still kept. This Madara was able to go toe-to-toe with the entirety of the Shinobi Alliance. However, giving him credit for these Edo Tensei feats, once again, is a little bit of a stretch, because Edo Tensei means infinite regeneration and infinite refilling chakra. However, that's not necessarily a problem for Madara, because during the time while he was alive, Madara was able to use his EMS in combat for 24 hours straight, a level of longevity pretty much reserved only for his rival, Hashirama. We've seen how taxing using an MS or an EMS can be on anyone. Itachi, Kakashi, and Sasuke are shown to be able to use their MS for what? an hour, maybe less. And on top of that, when you factor in the fact that Hashirama's cells were now grafted to Madara and therefore conferring Madara Hashirama's healing factor, which once again was stated by Madara to be comparable to mitotic regeneration, the ability that allows Tsunade and Sakura to grow back entire blown off limbs. And by the way, Madara implied that mitotic regeneration was like a hollow facsimile of Hashirama's healing factor, implying that mitotic regeneration was actually weaker than Hashirama's base form healing factor, which Madara now has. But that's not all he stole from Hashirama. Madara, upon receiving Hashirama's cell, also is now able to use Senjutsu Chakra, aka entering Sage Mode. And since he's essentially just hijacking Hashirama's Sage Mode, he was able to master it immediately, implying that this version of Madara also, even without Edo Tensei, pretty much has infinitely refilling chakra. Why does he have infinitely refilling chakra? Well, because he's not the one pulling in Senjutsu Chakra, it's technically Hashirama. And since you need to stay perfectly still to pull in Senjutsu Chakra, and it's not like he was flipping his peck around to move Hashirama's face, Hashirama on Madara's peck while Madara is moving around is able to pull in Senjutsu Chakra. And that's not all he stole from Hashirama, because he also stole Wood Release, being shown to pull off some of the strongest and most powerful Wood Release techniques known to man, most specifically God Nativity of a World of Trees, a technique capable of covering an entire battlefield in poisonous and or sleep-inducing flowers. Essentially, giant root systems shoot out of the ground and grow these flowers that release a toxin. Now, should a large amount of this toxin be inhaled, it will kill you, but if only a little is inhaled, it will put you to sleep. The only technique that I could even imagine to be stronger than this when we're talking about Wood Release would be Sage Art True 1000 Arms Kanon, the technique that Hashirama used to punch a Susanoo off of Kurama. However, since Madara has arguably the largest perfect Susanoo we've ever seen that has 4 arms with katanas that are able to cut mountains in half, using this technique was never necessary, especially when we consider the fact that within the confines of a Susanoo, Madara is able to stay perfectly still, maximizing how much Senjutsu Chakra he can pull in. And using this Wood Release, Madara was able to make 25 wood clones, and each of these wood clones was a match for one of the 5 Kage. Wood clones work exactly the same way as shadow clones, in that chakra is evenly distributed between them, which implies that Madara at 1/25th of his chakra is still as strong as the 5 Kage individually. When you consider all of this, it's no wonder that the only person Kurama was ever afraid of was Madara. And since we're talking about Kurama, Madara, while alive, so not even in his strongest form, was able to put Kurama under Genjutsu and control him. He was also able to force Kurama into a summoning contract. Kurama, the strongest of the tailed beasts, said to be stronger than all of the other tailed beasts combined. And we're not talking about the half of Kurama Naruto and Minato have, we're talking about the full entire Kurama. But even if you do surprise attack Madara after his Senjutsu Chakra upgrade, it's probably not gonna land. You see, we saw Madara dodge Flying Thunder God Slash, a technique used by Tobirama where he combines his Kenjutsu with his katana with his Flying Thunder God, technique that allows Tobirama to deliver a slash with his katana immediately. Not at the speed of light, not at the speed of sound, not really quickly, immediately. Tobirama teleports to a spot where a person is standing and slashes them with his katana. Madara, with the ability of Sage Mode, was able to guess where Tobirama was going and dodge an irrelevant speed attack. Now, you can obviously tie this to the fact that he used Sage Mode and therefore sensed it and didn't technically dodge it, but the ability to sense an irrelevant speed attack and move out of the way of it is something worth noting. But even if he hadn't dodged this attack, let's not forget he also had Hashirama's healing factor, and even if he's hurt beyond what he can heal with Hashirama's healing factor, he can switch body parts with White Zetsu. And if all of this sounds scary and you want to run away, I'm sorry, you can't. Madara is arguably the greatest sensor type ninja we've ever seen, being able to sense ninjas from countries away. And not even just being able to sense their chakra signature, Madara has been shown to be able to detect a specific chakra signature. From countries away, he can deduce your clan origin, your Kekkei Genkai, and even what species you are. And this was only boosted by attaining Senjutsu, because Madara's Senjutsu prowess outside of maybe Naruto and Hashirama is the highest we've ever seen. Madara, with no eyes, was able to beat Sasuke in a fight, because he was able to sense exactly where Sasuke would attack him from. But it doesn't end there. Blind Madara also went up against the likes of the 9-tailed beasts, Sasuke and Naruto. And well, yeah, he got hit a couple of times, and yes, he lost one of his arms. He was blind at the moment. And upon receiving his Rinnegan in his now Rinne rebirthed body, Madara was able to use his Limbo clones to knock out every single tailed beast in a matter of seconds. And mind you, since the tailed beasts themselves are basically just chakra and therefore naturally very in tune with nature chakra and sort of sages themselves, specifically in the case of Son Goku, the four tails who's said to be the king of sage monkeys, they should have been able to react to Limbo clones, which implies that they were either caught off guard or the Limbo clones were too fast for even the tailed beast to dodge. And even if you do close the distance between you and Madara and attempt to land a finishing blow, Madara has a Gunbai, a fan passed down through the generations of the Uchiha, made by an ancient and heralded tree. In this Gunbai, this fan is capable of deflecting a tailed beast Rasengan from KCM to Naruto. Not only is this fan able to nullify any physical or ninjutsu attack that it comes into contact with, it's able to send it back. But he honestly doesn't even have to use your attack against you because Madara has all 7 chakra natures, the 5 basic nature releases, and yin and yang. Madara, with only the use of these 7 chakra natures and his senjutsu, stated he could beat Jubito in a fight. Yes, that's right. Madara stated that if he had senjutsu chakra, he, in his human form, could go toe to toe with 10 Tails Obito. That's Rinnegan, Sharingan, 10 Tails, True Seeker Orbs, Obito. The Obito who was able to wield the sword of Nunabuko, the sword of Hagoromo himself, a sword said to have created the earth they were all standing on and have the ability to destroy said earth. A planet level weapon. Madara, in base form with his Sharingan in Senjutsu, would be able to defeat that. Mind you, in order to pull the tailed beast out of Obito, it took Sasuke, EMS, Naruto, KCM2, plus Sage Mode, all of the revived Kages in the entirety of the Shinobi Alliance. It took Majestic Attire Susanoo and Obito kind of losing his mind towards the end of the battle in order to defeat that. And that's without his own 10 Tails, which we'll get to now. See, Madara, when he absorbed the God Tree into himself, became the 10 Tails Jinchuriki. And in this form, just like Obito, he was able to wield True Seeker Orbs, an ability comprised of all 7 chakra natures, an ability only defeatable by Senjutsu chakra. However, at one point, 10 Tails Madara was fallible. When he absorbed the 10 Tails and only had 1 Rinnegan, he came into battle against Might Guy, who used the 8 Gates technique in combination with Minato and Kakashi and Gaara and a bunch of other people helping to kick a hole in Madara. Now, mind you, Night Guy quite literally bent space-time, which means that Might Guy's chakra became so dense, it basically became its own planet temporarily, since only supermassive objects like planets bend space-time, which implies that Madara, with 1 Rinnegan, not the 3 he has at his peak power, has planet-level durability. And it's even more terrifying when you consider the fact that Madara just doesn't ever use Susanoo after becoming the 10 Tails Jinchuriki. And we're not actually sure why he doesn't. See, it specifically stated that Obito wouldn't be able to use Kamui as the 10 Tails Jinchuriki because he wouldn't be able to teleport that much chakra. This isn't a problem for Madara though, who rips out Kakashi's eye like a light bulb, throws it in his face, and instantly masters Kamui, better than Obito, who's had it his entire life. But we're never given a reason why Madara doesn't use Susanoo. And when we consider the fact that Madara's Susanoo rib cage was able to block an Ultra Big Ball Rasengan almost effortlessly, it kind of makes you wonder if Madara's Susanoo would have been able to block Night Guy. See, Madara enjoys a good fight. He was screaming and laughing with joy while fighting Might Guy. So it's a possibility he didn't use Susanoo then or ever really to make sure that the odds weren't too stacked against his enemies. And upon Might Guy kicking a hole in Madara's chest, Madara needs a second to come back to life. However, while he's still recovering from the hole Might Guy kicked in his chest, he's able to react to Sage of Six Paths Naruto and block. And for all intents and purposes, while Madara only has 1 Rinnegan, Naruto and Sasuke, after their Hagoromo buff, are way too much for him to handle. However, after Madara absorbs the God Tree into himself and awakens his 2nd Rinnegan and his 3rd Rinnegan in his forehead, he is way too much of an adversary for the both of them. So much so that Madara is able to pull off Infinite Tsukiyomi. And while a lot of people talk about Infinite Tsukiyomi, the premise of Infinite Tsukiyomi is insane. Madara with Infinite Tsukiyomi is able to reflect his Rinne Sharingan off of the moon and puts the entire world in Genjutsu, in essence making the moon his own eye and having enough chakra to cast the entirety of the world under Genjutsu simultaneously. So what do we have here? A man with Hashirama's almost limitless healing factor and planet durability, Hashirama's Senjutsu ability, Hashirama's wood release, 2 Rinnegan, a Rinne Sharingan, enough chakra to place the entire world under Genjutsu simultaneously, possibly the ability while in this form to still use Susanoo, an MS ability we don't even know, and with the Rinnegan all of the abilities of the 6 paths and Limbo clones. Limbo clones invisible to anybody without a Rinnegan or Sage mode. Limbo clones capable of using Susanoo. And on top of this, since he's a 10-tailed Jinchuriki and able to use True Seeker orbs, there's no reason for us to assume he also cannot use the Sword of Nanabuko, implying that on top of all of this, Madara should be able to wield the Sword of Nanabuko that Obito used that apparently is strong enough to destroy and create the world. Mind you, Hagoromo, while Madara had 1 Rinnegan, not 3, stated that he was getting close to Hagoromo in power. In not a live version of Hagoromo, current version of Hagoromo. And Hagoromo is literally God. Hagoromo is infinitely powered. Hagoromo is an ethereal being that can travel between dimensions, pull people into separate dimensions, and pulls all of his power from the Pure Lands. The Pure Lands being Naruto canonical heaven. Since his power source is the Pure Lands, which is an entire dimension, Hagoromo has infinite power, on top of the fact that he has creation of all things jutsu, which allows him, with chakra, to make anything his imagination wants. And since he has infinite chakra and the creation of all things, he can make whatever he wants. Hagoromo is God, and he said Madara, with 1 Rinnegan, was getting close to his power. Therefore, I feel as though it's relatively safe to assume that Madara, with 3 Rinnegan, as many Rinnegan as Hagoromo has, is equal to Hagoromo. And once again, not living Hagoromo. We are talking Sage of 6 Paths Hagoromo. People will use the argument that Hagoromo needed Hamura to fight against Kaguya for several months to seal her. But those 4 Hagoromo absorbed the 10 tails and became the Sage of 6 Paths. That was just Sharingan Hagoromo. So with all of these abilities, where does Madara fall in the pecking order? Who does he beat in a fight? Well, we saw Madara with 1 Rinnegan go toe-to-toe against Naruto KCM 2 plus Sage mode. And Madara in this form was shown to be stronger than Naruto. Specifically, the circumstance I'm alluding to is that Madara, while in his 1 Rinnegan mode, came up against Naruto's shadow clones using his Limbo clones. These Limbo clones were able to destroy Naruto's shadow clones, of which Naruto currently had 4 to match Madara's 4 Limbo clones. This version of Naruto was able to almost instantaneously deflect 5-tailed beast bombs with his bare hands. Madara's Limbo clones were simply able to destroy his shadow clones using taijutsu, which is even more impressive when you consider the fact that these shadow clones were trying to use Rasengan on the Limbo clones. And on top of this, Madara's regular form was also fighting against Naruto's regular form. So simply with taijutsu, 1 Rinnegan Madara was stronger than KCM 2 Naruto plus Sage mode. But even if hypothetically Madara couldn't use Susanoo in this form, he could still use wood release. We saw Madara use God Nativity, a world of trees, which largely implies that there's really no wood release technique that Madara shouldn't be able to use, which implies things like Wood Golem or True Thousand Arms Kanon, which was able to punch a Susanoo off of Kurama, were also in his repertoire. Madara not using either of these techniques or really any wood release after becoming the 10 Tails Jinchuriki against Naruto largely implies that either he couldn't do it or he wasn't being serious. And honestly, talking about this exchange between the Limbo clones and the Shadow clones is important when we're talking about scaling Madara. Because while Madara was able to one-shot these Shadow clones, not even in his strongest form, you know who wasn't able to one-shot Shadow clones without using their strongest techniques? Kaguya. Kaguya was shown to have to use abilities like her Ash All-Killing Bone against Naruto's Shadow clones, of which at the time there was hundreds, mind you. This is important because, mind you, the way that Shadow clones work, the more of them there is, the weaker they are, because chakra is evenly distributed amongst Shadow clones. So the fact that Madara was able to destroy a lesser amount of Shadow clones using less effort than Kaguya kind of points us in a rather curious direction. You see, a point that's often used to scale Kaguya is the fact that Naruto and Sasuke only sealed her. See, Naruto and Sasuke with their Heaven and Moon seals used the Sage of 6 Paths Shibuka Tensei to seal Kaguya in a new moon in her own dimension. And because of this, people assume that Naruto and Sasuke wouldn't have been able to actually kill Kaguya. However, that's actually been retconned. We learned in Momoshiki's databook entry that Kaguya wasn't sealed. She was killed. In Momoshiki's databook entry, it states after Kaguya's death, not after her sealing, her death. And while a ceiling and a different dimension and death are both win states, death is a lot more important. It means that DMS Kakashi, Sakura, Sasuke, and Naruto during the war arc were equal to Kaguya. Not they got lucky in sealing her, not that they only had to place hands on her, it's that they killed her. They didn't kill Madara. Kaguya did. Well, technically Black Zetsu did. And honestly, I don't know if they could have killed Madara. As I sit here and I think about all the real abilities that Madara had that he just never really showed to us, on top of the abilities that he did show to us, like his storm-released laser that he shoots out of his mouth, that is not only able to cut true secret orbs in half, it also travels at the speed of light, that there's not a lot of people that would have been able to beat him. See, I have no misconceptions about the fact that Kaguya is arguably more powerful than Madara. She not only has more chakra, her chakra is more powerful, she has things like Ashall Killing Bone, which is a one-hit kill, and the ability to transport different parts of different dimensions to her current location. On top of that, she's able to travel between dimensions with the power of a Rinne Sharingan. But when we consider the fact that things like Ashall Killing Bone will be nullified by other Kikemora like True Secret Orbs or the Sword of Nabucco, the fight between Kaguya and Madara it's very interesting. See, Madara does have a couple of legs up on Kaguya. While the techniques he has under his belt may be a little less powerful than Kaguya's, his battle IQ is significantly higher, he's more skilled, he's more experienced, he has better regeneration with Hashirama's healing factor, and honestly, there's a possibility that Kaguya wouldn't be able to see the Limbo clones. While she does have a Rinne Sharingan in her forehead, it's stated that she has the abilities of a Sharingan and a Byakugan, and never that she has the abilities of a Rinnegan, which is why we never see her use any of the six path techniques or even Limbo clones of her own. And while it's a stretch because she obviously does have a Rinne Sharingan, it's a possibility she wouldn't be able to see them. Tie that into the fact that Madara will be able to react to her traveling between dimensions, it makes the fight between the two of them rather close in my mind. And while Kaguya herself does have light speed attacks, that just means the two of them have attacks at equal speed. Tie that into the fact that Kaguya had to use her most powerful techniques against Naruto's shadow clones, and a non-peak version of Madara didn't. And it makes you start to wonder, could Madara have actually won one-on-one against Kaguya? And honestly, I say yeah. He could have won against Kaguya, but I'd take it one step further than that. There's not a whole lot of people that could beat this version of Madara in a one-on-one. I honestly might get flack for this, but who's to say that adult Sasuke could take on this version of Madara one-on-one? See, basically the only thing we have to scale Sasuke against the Otsutsuki in Boruto is his battle against Momoshiki and the fact that he said he could solo a Kaguya level threat. But genuinely, in all measurable feats, how is adult Sasuke any stronger than this peak version of Madara? Chakra-wise, Madara has it by a mile. Regeneration, Sasuke has none. And while obviously Sasuke has the 6 Tome Rinnegan, this version of Madara has a Rinne Sharingan in 2 Rinnegan. We never got to see Madara's MS ability, which has non-canonly been shown to give him the ability to look into the future. Madara is a better sensor type because of the Sage mode, has better long distance options because of Wood Release, and probably has an equal level power Susanoo to Sasuke. Now, obviously, the iteration of Sasuke we saw with the Nine-Tailed Beast powering up the ability of Indra's Arrow might outclass Madara, in terms of Susanoo-age I'm talking. But Sasuke doesn't have access to that Susanoo anymore. On top of that, durability-wise, Madara was able to take a kick from Night Guy. Sasuke's never shown a durability feat even remotely close to that. The closest we've probably seen Sasuke in terms of a durability feat would most likely be his battle against Momoshiki, where Sasuke took numerous blows from Momoshiki, who's said to be stronger than Kaguya. But none of those attacks were bending space-time. And while personally I don't believe that this version of Madara would be able to defeat a fused Momoshiki, on account of the fact that fused Momoshiki would not only be able to see Limbo clones, it can also absorb all ninjutsu, I think, honestly, I still consider this version of Madara to be stronger than adult Sasuke, but still weaker than adult version Naruto, and even more specifically, Baryon mode Naruto. I mean, think about it. How long did Madara have the Rinne Sharingan? 10? 20 minutes? If Hagoromo genuinely believed that Madara was encroaching on his level of power, it is genuinely very difficult to make the argument that there was people out there stronger than him. I do think that 3 Rinnegan Madara would beat Kaguya in a fight. And while I understand that a fight between the strongest version of Sasuke and the strongest version of Madara would be very close, just like with a fight between Minato and Itachi, stamina is a major issue for Sasuke. Every time we see him use his Rinne Sharingan in Boruto, what's supposed to be his strongest form, it seems as though he taps out his battery in a matter of minutes. Yet Madara not only had nearly limitless chakra as a human, he now also has the chakra of the 10 tails. So while honestly I could see an argument going for either this version of Madara or adult Sasuke, I think that leaves us at our perfect resting point. I think the answer to the question, how strong was Madara, is exactly that, adult Sasuke, and possibly even higher. But what do you guys think? Tell me in the comments below, and while you guys are down there, please, for me, like this video, subscribe to the page, and hit that noti bell. Listen, do I have a little bit of bias because I hate Sasuke as a character? Maybe, but am I gonna admit that? Well, I guess I just technically did. Ignore that.